It's Saturday morning, no alarm, no boss, the whole world exhaling at once. 2 days that belong to you. And here's the strange part. For almost all of human history, this did not exist. The weekend is younger than the automobile, barely 100 years old, and it didn't arrive as a gift. People schemed for it, struck for it, fought for it for a century. This is the story of how we won the weekend, and how just as quietly we're giving it away. Even the long weekend you might be sitting in right now was no accident. For most of human history, there was no weekend because there was no week worth the name. Work followed the sun and the seasons, not a number on a calendar. You rose with the light, worked the land, and stopped when the dark or the weather stopped you. There was no Friday feeling because there was no Friday, just today and the work it demanded. Even the 7-day week isn't natural. Nothing in the sky takes exactly 7 days. We inherited it from the ancient world, an astrologer's week that pinned each day to a wandering light in the heavens. The Romans spread their version across an empire. The Norse later swapped in gods of their own. Look closely, and both are still hiding in the names. Sun's Day, Moon's Day, Saturn's Day, and Woden's Day, Thor's Day. It isn't even the same week everywhere. Much of the world still rests on a Friday or a Saturday, not a Sunday. The week is ancient, borrowed, and completely invented, not a law of nature. For almost all of that time, a day off meant exactly one thing: the Sabbath. One day set aside by faith, chosen not by the worker, but by the commandment. For Jews, sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. For Christians, Sunday. It wasn't leisure as we'd know it. It was a sacred duty to stop. Rest wasn't a right you'd earned. It was an obligation you owed to God, and often the law enforced it. Shops shut, work ceased by order. So the weekend did not begin as 2 days of freedom. It began as 1 day of religion. Then came the machine, and it shattered a rhythm 10,000 years old. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we worked, it changed time itself. The farm had run on the sun, the factory ran on the clock, and the clock never tired. The whistle blew before dawn and you came. It blew at night and you went home. 6-day weeks, 12, 14, 16 hours a day in heat and noise and dust. Children worked too, small enough to crawl beneath the machines before they were old enough to read. Sunday was the only rest. 1 day to recover before 6 more swallowed you whole. For the first time in history, your time wasn't your own. It had a price, and someone else had bought it. But working people had once kept a holiday all their own, and they did not surrender it easily. Long before the factory bell, skilled tradesmen worked by the piece and answered to no clock. And week after week, after a Sunday of rest and drink, a great many of them simply didn't show up on Monday. They gave the habit a cheekily holy name, Saint Monday. It was no minor custom. By the 1800s, music halls and theaters put on shows for the Monday crowd. They'd loaf on Monday, then work like the devil, Tuesday to Saturday to make it up. Then the factory came, and a factory cannot abide a workforce that vanishes 1 day in 6. The owners raged against St. Monday. They fined it, preached against it, set out to crush it. But you cannot simply take a free day from people who have always had one. They would have to be offered something in return. That bargain began to take shape in Manchester in 1843. Reformers proposed a trade, give workers Saturday afternoon off, and they'd give up St. Monday and work the rest of the week through. The owners took it. Half a day of leisure to win back a whole day of labor. The free Saturday afternoon spread from the warehouses to the whole town, then across the country. Workers poured into it. And decades later, once that free afternoon had spread, organized football grew up to fill it. A Saturday fixture to this day. Now set that free Saturday beside the old Christian day of rest on Sunday. There it was, almost by accident. The shape of the modern weekend, Saturday and Sunday, side by side. For decades, though, that weekend was a custom, not a rule, granted and withdrawn at a boss's whim. The first factory to make a full 2-day week official, by one often told account, did it for the unlikeliest reason: religion. Around 1908, a New England mill employed many Jewish workers whose Sabbath fell on Saturday. They couldn't work Saturdays, so they made the time up on Sundays, the Christian day of rest. Caught between 2 Sabbaths and 1 calendar, the mill simply gave everyone both days off. An early, unusually clear case of the 5-day week, Saturday for one faith, Sunday for the other. The owners naturally still wrung 6 days of work out of 5, and the idea kept spreading. Then the most famous industrialist on earth made the weekend his own, and let slip what it was really for. Henry Ford had already stunned the world once. In 1914, he more than doubled his workers' pay to $5 a day. Rivals called him a madman, giving away his profit. But Ford had seen what they hadn't. His own workers couldn't afford the cars they were building. A well-paid worker wasn't only a cost on the books, he was a future customer. And in 1926, Ford carried that logic all the way. He shut his factories for Saturday and Sunday both. 5 days, 40 hours, the same pay as 6. The papers crowned him a friend of the working man. But Ford wasn't being kind. He was being precise. His real genius was never building cars. It was building the people who would buy them. A worker on the line from dawn to dusk has no time to drive a car, take a trip, or spend a dime. It was, in his own words, high time to rid ourselves of the notion that leisure for workmen is either lost time or a class privilege. And plainer still, people who have more leisure, he said, must have more clothes. Mass production needs mass consumption, and consumption needs a free day to happen in. Ford didn't hand you the weekend out of generosity. He handed it to you so you'd hand the money back. But Ford only got to offer the weekend because workers had already spent a century making the long day impossible to defend. For generations, they had fought over a single number, 8. 8 hours of work, not 12, not 16, 8. The slogan was coined by a mill reformer, Robert Owen, back in 1817. 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest. 3 equal pieces of a day, 1 for the boss, 1 for living, 1 for sleep. It became the rallying cry of labor on both sides of the Atlantic. They marched for it, struck for it, were locked out and jailed for it. On the 1st of May, 1886, hundreds of thousands of American workers walked off the job to demand it. 3 days later, in Chicago's Haymarket Square, a bomb was thrown into a labor rally. In the panic, men were sent to the gallows. On evidence, a later governor called the work of packed juries and a biased judge before he pardoned the survivors. The bomb thrower was never found. The 1st of May became Workers' Day around the world. The 8-hour day, the shorter week, the weekend itself. None were favors. They were won, over decades, the hard way. The long fight finally became law in 1938. President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Fair Labor Standards Act. It guaranteed overtime pay, put a floor under wages, and started the clock ticking down toward a 40-hour week. And it finally pulled the children off the factory floor. By 1940, the 40-hour week was fully in force, and the 2-day weekend was the American standard, though not for everyone. The law left out farmhands and domestic workers, so for millions the weekend was still years away. But for most, once 2 free days arrived, the world rushed to fill them. Whole industries grew up on a thing that a generation earlier hadn't existed. Ball games, cinemas, the Sunday drive, the trip to the coast. Thank God it's Friday became a feeling an entire civilization could share. The weekend stopped being mere time off from life and became where much of life now happened. And the 3-day-long weekend is the most deliberately engineered of all. For most of the 20th century, a holiday fell on its true date, whatever weekday that happened to be. Then in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act. It slid a whole set of holidays, Memorial Day, Washington's birthday, Columbus Day, permanently onto Mondays. The reason wasn't history, and it wasn't meaning. It was the 3-day weekend itself. The travel industry had pushed for it for years. A guaranteed long weekend means people take trips, book rooms, and spend, all except one. The 4th of July was never moved. Congress left it fixed to its date. So the long weekend you might be in right now is the one nobody engineered. Just the calendar? Getting lucky. Which makes the end of this story the strangest part of all. We fought for a century to wall off 2 days from work. And now, without a single strike, we're quietly taking the wall down ourselves. The email at the dinner table, the just one quick thing that can't wait until Monday, the phone in your pocket turned every hour into a possible working hour. And here's the catch. The same consumer economy that gave us the weekend, leisure invented so we'd have time to spend, is the one now quietly selling it back. The phone in your pocket turns every hour into a chance to work or to buy. The boundary that cost a century of struggle is dissolving, not by force this time, but by convenience, one notification at a time. The weekend was never natural and never inevitable. It was built, deliberately and recently. One day for God, one day for the customer. And both pried loose by people who refuse to give their whole lives to the clock. So this weekend, when the world exhales, take it. All of it. It's yours. Somebody had to invent your day off, and somebody had to fight to keep it.